Sachs University professor at Columbia University. Thank you for your efforts for peace. I have been an advisor to the governments of Russia, Ukraine, and the United Nations, and I want to speak with you about the truth about this war. We are not at the one-year anniversary of the war. This is the 9th anniversary of the war. The war began with the violent overthrow of Ukraine President Viktor Yanukovych, a coup that was backed by the United States government. From 2008 onward, the United States was pushing NATO enlargement to Ukraine and Georgia. Yanukovych wanted neutrality. He stood between the U.S. and its goal of NATO enlargement. When protests broke out against Yanukovych at the end of 2013, the United States took the opportunity to escalate the protests and to contribute to a coup against Yanukovych in February 2014. That was the start of the war 9 years ago. Since then, Russia took Crimea, war broke out in the Donbass, NATO poured in billions of dollars of weaponry to Ukraine. The war constantly escalated. The so-called Minsk I and II peace agreements, in which Germany was to be co-guarantor, did not function because Ukraine refused to implement them, and Germany and France did not press for their implementation. At the end of 2021, President Putin made clear that the red lines for Russia were NATO enlargement to Ukraine as unacceptable, that Russia would maintain control of Crimea, and that the Donbass needed to be settled by implementation of the Minsk II agreements. The Biden White House refused to negotiate NATO enlargement. The Russian invasion tragically and wrongly took place in February 2022, 8 years after the Yanukovych coup. The United States has poured in massive armament since then, and the death and destruction is horrific. In March 2022, Ukraine said that it would negotiate on the basis of neutrality. We now know that the United States blocked those negotiations, favoring an escalation of war. In September 2022, the Nord Stream pipelines were blown up. The overwhelming evidence is the United States led that destruction of the Nord Stream pipelines. We are, ladies and gentlemen, on a path of dire escalation and lies or silence in the media. The entire narrative that this is the first anniversary of war is already a false narrative. This is a war that began because of NATO enlargement and the U.S. participation in a coup and the massive arming of Ukraine, and then the horrific invasion by Russia and escalation. This is a war that needs to stop before it engulfs all of us in nuclear Armageddon. Thank you for your efforts. We must speak truth. Both sides have lied and cheated and committed violence. Both sides need to back off. NATO must stop the attempt to enlarge to Ukraine and to Georgia. We must listen to the red lines of both sides so that the world will survive. Thank you so much for your efforts for peace. They are vital. Thank you.